Welcome. Today, we are looking at the particulate nature of matter. This is a key topic in your chemistry exams for SS1. Pay close attention. Let us begin. First, let me explain what the particulate nature of matter means. The particulate nature of matter is the idea that all matter is made up of tiny particles. These particles are atoms, molecules, or ions. The concept of particles explains the properties of matter and the changes that matter undergoes. The idea that matter is made of particles is not new. It was first proposed by ancient Greek philosophers like Democritus. He called the particles atoms, which means indivisible. Today, we know that atoms are divisible into protons, neutrons, and electrons. But the idea that matter is particulate is fundamental to modern chemistry. Understanding the particulate nature of matter helps us explain why substances behave the way they do. It helps us explain why solids are rigid, why liquids flow, and why gases expand. It also helps us explain changes of state, diffusion, and osmosis. Now let me explain the kinetic theory of matter. The kinetic theory is a model that explains the behavior of particles in matter. It is based on several assumptions. First, all matter is made of tiny particles. Second, these particles are in constant motion. Third, the particles collide with each other and with the walls of their container. Fourth, the average kinetic energy of the particles is proportional to the temperature. The higher the temperature, the faster the particles move. Fifth, there are forces of attraction between particles. These forces are strongest in solids and weakest in gases. The kinetic theory explains the three states of matter. In solids, particles are closely packed in a fixed arrangement. They vibrate about fixed positions. The forces of attraction between them are strong. This gives solids a fixed shape and volume. In liquids, particles are close together, but not in a fixed arrangement. They can slide past each other. The forces of attraction are weaker than in solids. This gives liquids a fixed volume but no fixed shape. In gases, particles are far apart and move freely. The forces of attraction between them are very weak. This gives gases no fixed shape or volume. They expand to fill their container. The kinetic theory also explains changes of state. When a solid is heated, its particles vibrate faster. Eventually, they break free from their fixed positions. The solid melts into a liquid. When a liquid is heated, its particles move faster. Eventually, they escape into the air. The liquid boils into a gas. When a gas is cooled, its particles slow down. They come together. The gas condenses into a liquid. When a liquid is cooled, its particles slow down further. They arrange into a fixed pattern. The liquid freezes into a solid. Now let me explain diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of particles from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. It is a natural process that occurs in gases, liquids, and solids. Diffusion happens because particles are in constant motion. They move randomly in all directions. Over time, they spread out evenly. Gases diffuse the fastest because their particles move rapidly and have large spaces between them. Liquids diffuse more slowly because their particles move more slowly and are closer together. Solids diffuse very slowly because their particles are fixed in position. Examples of diffusion include the smell of perfume spreading across a room. The perfume molecules diffuse through the air. Another example is a drop of ink spreading in water. The ink molecules diffuse through the water. Diffusion is important in many chemical and biological processes. It is how oxygen enters our blood. It is how carbon dioxide leaves our cells. It is how nutrients are absorbed by plants. Understanding diffusion helps us understand how substances mix and how reactions occur. Now let me explain osmosis. Osmosis is a special type of diffusion. It is the movement of solvent particles through a semi-permeable membrane from a region of lower solute concentration to a region of higher solute concentration. A semi-permeable membrane allows solvent particles to pass through, but not solute particles. Osmosis occurs when two solutions of different concentrations are separated by a semi-permeable membrane. Water moves from the dilute solution to the concentrated solution. This continues until the concentrations are equal or until the pressure stops the flow. Osmosis is important in biology. It is how water is absorbed by plant roots. It is how water is transported in plants. It is how water is regulated in cells. If a cell is placed in a dilute solution, water enters the cell. The cell swells. If a cell is placed in a concentrated solution, water leaves the cell. The cell shrinks. Understanding osmosis helps us understand how living organisms maintain their internal environment. Now let me explain Brownian motion. Brownian motion is the random movement of particles suspended in a fluid. It is caused by collisions with the molecules of the fluid. The particles move in a zigzag pattern. Brownian motion is named after the botanist Robert Brown. He observed the movement of pollen grains in water under a microscope. He saw that the pollen grains moved randomly. He could not explain why. Later, it was discovered that the movement was caused by collisions with water molecules. Brownian motion is evidence for the kinetic theory. It shows that particles are in constant motion. It also shows that particles are small enough to be affected by collisions. Brownian motion is observed in gases and liquids. It is more pronounced for small particles and at higher temperatures. Understanding Brownian motion helps us understand the behavior of particles in fluids. Now, let me explain the evidence for the particulate nature of matter. There are several pieces of evidence. The first is diffusion. Diffusion shows that particles move from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration. This would not happen if matter were continuous. The second is Brownian motion. Brownian motion shows that particles are in constant random motion. This is evidence that matter is made of particles. The third is the behavior of gases. Gases can be compressed. They expand to fill their container. This is because the particles in gases are far apart and have large spaces between them. The fourth is the behavior of solids, liquids, and gases. Solids have a fixed shape and volume. This is because the particles are closely packed. Liquids have a fixed volume, but no fixed shape. This is because the particles can slide past each other. Gases have no fixed shape or volume. This is because the particles are far apart and move freely. The fifth is the changes of state. When a solid melts, the particles break free from their fixed positions. When a liquid boils, the particles escape into the air. This is evidence that matter is made of particles. The sixth is the fact that substances can be separated into their components. A mixture can be separated by physical means. A compound can be broken down into its elements by chemical means. This is evidence that matter is made of particles. The seventh is the fact that chemical reactions involve the rearrangement of atoms. Atoms are not created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. They are simply rearranged. This is evidence that matter is made of atoms. Now let me explain the size of particles. Particles are very small. They cannot be seen with the naked eye. They cannot be seen with an ordinary microscope. They can be seen with an electron microscope. The diameter of an atom is about 10 to the power of -10 meters. This is very small. 1,000,000 atoms lined up side by side would be about the thickness of a human hair. The mass of an atom is also very small. 1 gram of hydrogen contains about 6 times 10 to the power of 23 atoms. This number is called Avogadro's number. It is the number of particles in 1 mole of a substance. The small size of particles explains why matter appears continuous to us. We cannot see the individual particles. We see the collective effect of many particles. This is why solids appear solid, liquids appear continuous, and gases appear empty. The small size of particles also explains why diffusion is slow. Particles take time to travel from one place to another. They collide with other particles and change direction. This slows down the overall movement. Now let me explain the arrangement of particles in different states. In solids, particles are arranged in a regular, repeating pattern. This is called a crystal lattice. The particles are held together by strong forces of attraction. They can only vibrate about fixed positions. This gives solids their characteristic properties. They are rigid and have a fixed shape and volume. They cannot be compressed easily. In liquids, particles are not arranged in a regular pattern. They are close together but can move past each other. The forces of attraction are weaker than in solids. This gives liquids their characteristic properties. They have a fixed volume but no fixed shape. They can flow and take the shape of their container. They cannot be compressed easily. In gases, particles are far apart. They are not arranged in any pattern. The forces of attraction are very weak. This gives gases their characteristic properties. They have no fixed shape or volume. They can be compressed easily. They expand to fill their container. Now, let me explain the effect of temperature on particles. Temperature is a measure of the average kinetic energy of particles. When the temperature increases, the particles move faster. Their kinetic energy increases. This causes changes of state. When a solid is heated, its particles vibrate faster. Eventually, they break free from their fixed positions. The solid melts. When a liquid is heated, its particles move faster. Eventually, they escape into the air. The liquid boils. When a gas is cooled, its particles slow down. They come together. The gas condenses. When a liquid is cooled, its particles slow down further. They arrange into a fixed pattern. The liquid freezes. The effect of temperature on particles is important in many chemical processes. For example, increasing the temperature increases the rate of a reaction. The particles move faster and collide more often. Increasing the temperature also increases the pressure of a gas. The particles move faster and collide more often with the walls of the container. A common exam question asks you to explain the kinetic theory of matter. Here is a sample answer. The kinetic theory states that matter is made of tiny particles in constant motion. Particles collide with each other and with container walls. Temperature is a measure of average kinetic energy. Higher temperature means faster particles. The theory explains the behavior of solids, liquids, and gases. It also explains changes of state. Particles in solids vibrate. Particles in liquids slide past each other. Particles in gases move freely. Another exam question asks you to define diffusion and give examples. Here is your answer. Diffusion is the movement of particles from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. It occurs in gases, liquids, and solids. Examples include the smell of perfume spreading across a room and a drop of ink spreading in water. Diffusion is faster in gases and slower in solids. It is important in many chemical and biological processes. Another exam question asks you to distinguish between diffusion and osmosis. Here is your answer. Diffusion is the movement of particles from high concentration to low concentration. Osmosis is the movement of solvent particles through a semi-permeable membrane from a dilute solution to a concentrated solution. Diffusion does not require a membrane. Osmosis requires a semi-permeable membrane. Diffusion involves any particles. Osmosis involves only solvent particles. Let me give you a quick summary. The particulate nature of matter states that all matter is made of tiny particles. The kinetic theory explains the behavior of particles. Diffusion is the movement of particles from high to low concentration. Osmosis is the movement of solvent through a semi-permeable membrane. Brownian motion is evidence for particle movement. Particles are very small and cannot be seen with the naked eye. The arrangement of particles differs in solids, liquids, and gases. Temperature affects particle movement. Practice these concepts. When you have them down, move to topic 4.